Today, I'm going to be critically analysing two papers related to the study of limit and critical flux. First, paper 1 is called Flux Kinetics, Limit and Critical Fluxes for Low Pressure Dead-End Microfiltration. Firstly, what was the objective of the study? To summarise the statement of purpose at the end of the introduction, this paper studied a positively charged microfiltration membrane to find the non-zero limit fluxes for all pressures and pH. The statement of purpose does not discuss critical flux, though it is included in the article. Does the statement of purpose in the abstract match the one in the introduction? No, it does not match the one as seen in the introduction, as it only discusses the effect of pressure on flux decay mechanisms. Overall, I don't believe the abstract suggests the intention to study the effects on limit or critical flux, even though it is a significant part of the paper and is even included in the title. Is the theory introduced well? Focusing on the subject of limit and critical flux, I believe the concepts were not clearly defined. It may be due to my lack of knowledge when starting this assignment, but I thought the definitions were confusing and didn't help, and this prompted me to clarify them by reading other papers. However, the equations for limit flux relating to the different mechanisms of fouling were interesting to read, but I was disappointed that it was not further explored in the article, so it felt like it was unnecessary in relation to the rest of what the article covered. Is the data presented clearly? The relevant figures in the paper relating to limit and critical flux are figures 1 and 3. Figure 1 gives a general illustration of where the two types of critical flux occur in relation to limit flux and applied pressure. The fact that this is an illustration rather than plotted data is not made clear in the figure caption, but is implied in the sentence, actually, the steps in the gradients would be more gradual, which doesn't seem an appropriate comment for the caption. In contrast, figure 3 is set out clearly with the effects of individual pHs, but also a comparative graph of all of them, which is very helpful. The caption to the figure also reflects the contents appropriately. Additionally, I found the nomenclature for this article poor, as there is no summary, and for a lot of it you had to sift through the text to follow the equation. Does the study reveal what the researcher intended to study? Like stated before, the intentions of the paper are a little vague, but the study's results do match what is covered in the title. Overall, I thought this paper had some good ideas, but it was pulling itself in different directions to cover more than what was needed. Paper 2 is called A New Model for the Calculation of Limiting Flux in Ultrafiltration. Firstly, what was the objective of the study? In the statement of purpose in the introduction, this paper explains limiting flux with the formation of the cake layer. Then, based on a more realistic version of cross-flow ultrafiltration, a new model has been developed. This statement does not include that it discusses the initial models or the errors that are involved in them, but I think it is a good statement of purpose. Does the statement of purpose in the abstract match the one in the introduction? The abstract almost replicates the statement in the introduction by using the same terminology, but the abstract is more in-depth, which gives the reader a simple summation of what's included in the article. Is the theory introduced well? Under the title Previous Work, the article sets out how the original models were calculated, clearly showing the origins and conditions assumed. It is then showed why these are not applicable in real cross-flow ultrafiltration. It then introduces the newer model to find limit flux, and like the previous models, it derives its origins, discussing why the conditions assumed in the newer model are sensible conclusions. It also shows the straight line equation to calculate limit flux, which I found very helpful. Is the data presented clearly? All the equations and their origins are clearly displayed, and anything not apparent from the equations is clarified in the surrounding text, making it easy and interesting to grasp the concepts. The graphs to illustrate the simulation of the model are clear, and the captions are concise and understandable. The nomenclature for this article was set out at the end, as well as it being explained throughout, which again aided in the ability to understand the concept. Does the study reveal what the researcher intended to study? I feel like this article was less of an experimental data paper and more an informational article, but nevertheless, the paper did cover everything it aimed to as per the abstract and introduction. Overall, I really enjoyed reading this paper. Its clear and concise layout and discussion, deriving from origin to the final model, was easy to follow and understand with the use of simulation graphs. In comparison to the first paper, I think paper 2 is much better written. Thank you.